Hey guys and girls, Sean Longford here, your host of the Midnight Highway Radio. What you're about to listen to is one of the first interviews I've ever done in my life. Okay, this is very old, and I apologize for the buzzing sound that you're going to hear in the background of the audio. I really wish I had a cleaner version of this interview. However, I don't. But this interview to me is very significant, not only because it was like basically my first interview I've ever done, so it's a memory for me, but just imagining if what this lady is talking about is real, all the different aliens that are actually visiting this planet, it's insane, guys. So I hope you can find it in your hearts to still push the like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't knock it too bad for the audio. I really apologize for the buzzing sound, guys, but it's just too good not to put up. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoy the show and subscribe. Thank you, guys.
You're listening to the Midnight Highway Radio with your host, Sean Longford. So sit back, take a ride on the Midnight Highway. Where it may take you is not known. Keep an open mind, a mind for the possibility. What if? Now here's your host, Sean Longford.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning. Wherever you may be, I am Sean Longford, and you are listening to the Midnight Highway Radio. Saturday, May 12th, 1990, began as an ordinary day for an ordinary couple, Jack and Nancy Malacoria. But this day would mark the beginning of an ongoing and incredible revelation that would transform their lives and Earth forever. That's citing the back of Nancy's book, The Project at Earth. Okay, we all have wondered, is there life on other planets? If so, have these extraterrestrials traveled to Earth before? Is it even possible to do so? There is no mistaking it. UFO sightings are occurring at an alarming rate. Rather fake or fiction, meaning the numerous videos and photos that are currently circulating the internet today. This topic has become extremely popular. What would you do if you met an alien? Would you be scared? Happy? How would you react? What would you ask of it? Well, tonight's guest not only claims to have spoken with aliens, she also states that she's in communication with these beings on a daily basis. Guys and girls, go grab those cookies, grab a snack. This is one show you don't want to miss. When we come back, Earth Sister, also known as Nancy, will share her story. We will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. As I said before, this is one show you do not want to miss. So we're going to get right into it. But I wanted to quickly announce that our website is up and running now, so please visit www.themidnighthighway.com. So, Nancy, I want to welcome you to the show. And I know you got some pretty fascinating stories to share with us, right?
Right. Well, thank you, Sean. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you back. Been a long time.
Yeah.
So let's go back to when all of this began.
Well, my first book starts May 12th, 1990. And that was the first major experience that Jack had while he was home alone. And that happened to him in his workshop when a being showed up to him and told him that there were 30 other worlds concerned for our planet and our race, and that they were not going to let man destroy this world or race.
So, when you say Jack, that's your husband, Jack. What exactly was he doing? I mean, was he in his garage just working, or tool shop, you said, and then this... I mean, how did this... Where did it come from? Did it just manifest, or how did this take place?
He was cleaning a set of Oriental rugs for a client. He was hand cleaning them. That's why he had them in the workshop, which is a converted garage.
Okay.
And there's one doorway out of the garage. And there's windows, but they're covered so that extra light can't come in.
Okay.
And as he was working, he had on the overhead fans, which are loud, and he had on his tape player. We had tapes back then.
Yeah, hard to believe, huh?
Yeah. And he had on his power vac, which is really loud. And as he's working, he's looking down, and he kept seeing a flash of light, like a strobe, or like a camera flash. But when he'd looked to see what it was, there was nothing there. And it happened, I think, 3 or 4 times. So he got up and went to look out the door to see if somebody maybe was walking around the yard, or something blowing in the breeze, to make a flash come in. And he had to get water anyway. So he walked up to the house and he turned the water on, and he heard the phone ringing. So he came into the house and he answered the phone, and it was our friend, Vinny and Diana. And they had been trying to call Jack on the business phone, which rings in the workshop.
Okay.
So they had their conversation, and Jack went back outside, back into the workshop, and he's working, and there was another flash of light, and this one stayed lit up. It didn't blink out. It came on, and it stayed on. And Jack was looking at it, and in the middle of the floor, standing up like a holograph, opened a doorway. And to picture what it looks like, it's like if you're in a dark room and there's a light on in a closet, and you open the closet door. You can't see the door, you can't see the frame, you can only see the shape.
Right.
That it's the door because the light is coming out of it. That's what it looked like. And as it opened, there was a figure standing in the doorway. And it looked like a person, but it was like a shadow, but in reverse. And there was clearly a head on top, sort of shoulders, arms down straight, and legs. But it kind of looked like someone in an overcoat. It wasn't defined at all.
Okay.
Didn't see any facial features. And as this is happening, of course, Jack's kind of flipping out in his mind.
Right, I'm
looking
sitting here
at it.
thinking, yeah, I mean, is he afraid?
Yeah, afraid his knees were weak. And it was between him and the only way out of the workshop.
Oh, my.
And it happened probably really fast, but you know, when something horrible is happening in front of you, it seems like forever. And even when it happens to you, it's really difficult to try to describe it later.
Right.
So, when the doorway opened all the way and Jack is looking at it, the image said to Jack in his mind, he heard it in his head, this was the first time this ever happened to him. The image said, this image is scaring you, so I'm going to make it disappear. But I'm still going to be here, and I'm still going to talk to you.
Okay.
And it closed up and disappeared.
Now, did this relax Jack a little bit?
No.
But it could have made it worse.
It was just, he couldn't relax. He was backed up against the back wall of the workshop. He didn't even realize that he'd done that. And he had backed into the tape player, which was on a thin shelf right on the wall. And he didn't realize that he had done that. And he had shut off the tape player with his back or his shoulder. And when the doorway closed up, he suddenly left the garage, fled.
Okay, so he just got out of there.
Yeah, he got out. He forced himself not to run, but he fled. And he went across the workshop, across the lawn, and into the house. And he paced around the kitchen a little bit, didn't know what to do. He was very upset. And he thought about what to do, and he wanted to talk to me, but I wasn't home.
Right.
His mother was home upstairs. He didn't know what to do. After about 20 minutes, he decided to go back to the garage.
Now that's taking some courage right there.
Yeah.
He's already got more guts than me.
The way he described it even at that time was he just felt like his whole world just melted. Everything was suddenly different than he ever thought. He couldn't make sense of anything, but he felt like he had to face his fear. And he's had training as a policeman, and he was an MP in the Army. So he's had training. You don't duck when somebody's swinging at you.
Right.
You know? So he decided to go back to the garage, or at least to try. So he went back outside, and he looked in. The door was still open. He looked in. Everything looked normal. And he stepped in. There's a little step you have to step over to get in. And as he stepped in, he heard the fans come back on, and the vacuum came back on when he stepped in.
That's got to be shock and awe right again, all over again.
Yeah, it scared him, but he looked around and everything looked normal. Everything seemed normal and looked normal. You know how people use denial? They act like everything's okay because they don't know how else to act.
Right.
I swear it was a little bit of that. You know, like if he could just clean rugs and pretend this never happened. You know, and figure it out later, maybe.
Yeah.
He didn't know what else to do anyway. What else do you do? Call the police?
Yeah, I mean, how would you approach somebody and even begin to tell them what just took place? I mean, it's so unbelievable to the normal person.
Right. Exactly. Still to this day, it's still unbelievable to most people. And so he he finished cleaning the rugs. And when he was done, he was leaving the garage, and he was thinking, well, wait, back up a little bit. While he's finishing cleaning the rugs, the voice started talking to him.
And this is in his head again, right?
In his head. The voice is talking to him in his head, which he never didn't know what telepathy was. Jack had never read about anything supernatural. He had no interest in anything odd, anything strange, so he didn't know about any of that. He never heard anything right or wrong about it. Wait a second, I have to answer my little boy. Hold on.
That's all right.
Bella's sleeping? Okay, good. Can you please stay in the other room while I'm on the phone? No, I'll put Bella in the sleeping room. So, the voice continued to talk to him, and it told him, it talked about the state of our planet. And if I remember exactly right now, it was our water, our air, and our trees. And our trees were in the most critical state of everything.
Okay.
Of all the things we're ruining, of all the things that we need the most and have the least of, our trees are in a critical state. The voice also talked about, if I remember correctly now, I have it all written down, of course, about coral reefs also. But the most critical thing was our forests.
Well, which makes a lot of sense.
Can't breathe without our forests. And, the balance of everything.
Right, of course.
So, when Jack was leaving the garage, he was thinking, well, who do I tell? He thought to himself, I gotta tell somebody, what do I do now? And the only person home was his mom upstairs. We live in a 2-family. And so he washed up and he went upstairs, and the voice said to him, if you try to tell your mother, she'll humor you. But if you wait until Nancy gets home and tell her, she'll understand.
Interesting.
And, Jack heard it, but the voice didn't say, do this, don't do that. It was just telling him. He couldn't hold it in. He couldn't sit down here. We still live in the same house. He needed to try to see his mother. He wanted to see his mother. Who wouldn't, right?
Right.
So he went upstairs and he tried to tell her. She was watching something on TV and fixing something for dinner, and she was only half listening to him, and I'm sure he was only half trying to tell her.
I know if I was to walk up to her and tell her a story like that, she would probably be like, did you just wake up or something? I mean, she's going to think it's made up for sure.
Right. That's what she did to him. She said, are you working with chemicals? Which is really stupid, because none of the chemicals we use is strong enough to do anything like that. It's nothing. It's like laundry soap.
But she humored it, just like the entity said, right?
Right, exactly. And after that, though, she swore that she believed him and listened to him. She tried to rewrite history, but we already had it all written down. It was too late. That's why you should always write things down.
Right.
So, when I got home, I was a little late, and I had all the kids, and the kids were little. And I wanted to get dinner going. and Jack was trying to tell me something happened, and I was brushing him off because I was busy. The kids were really cranky. They were crying, and I had a lot of things I needed to do in a short amount of time to have them in bed on time. So, I was just kind of maybe a little bit rudely walking by Jack saying, "Come on, why don't you help me?" And he's trying to tell me something happened. And finally he said, "Nancy," and I looked at him and I realized that something really happened, that he was trying really hard to tell me and he didn't know how to tell me. And I thought he was going to tell me that somebody had died. His face was grave, and his lips were shaking.
So he definitely had your full attention now.
Now he had my attention. But the kids were still around us, and I still needed to get dinner going, and I still couldn't focus, but I was worried about him, and I just needed to know everybody was all right. And he said something happened today, and he started trying to tell me about the garage and the yard and the light, and that he thought maybe an airplane was going by. You know how sometimes an airplane goes by and it catches the sun?
Right, yeah.
It reflects down on you really bright.
Okay.
He described that a little bit, or he hinted at it. So my mind, it was taking him so long to just tell me, but he couldn't tell me it, that my mind was jumping ahead. And I was trying to piece together what he was telling me. So I was picturing an accident on the road and people climbing over the back fence, all bloody, or a plane accident. He was so upset, like this horrible, horrible thing had happened. And when he started describing it a little better, I started to realize that it was one of those things that has happened to me many times, where it's something, but you don't know what it is, but it's real.
Right. Kind of like a deja vu.
Something like that, yeah. When something happens and you know it's real, but you can't describe it, you don't really know what it is, and you feel like you got a very lucky glimpse into another realm, sort of. And I realized that he had some kind of an experience, and it was his first one, and he was really shaken. And he didn't tell me all about everything right away, because we still needed to get the kids to bed so we could sit down. Just like I have a kid right here again. I'm on the phone right now. Remember I told you this is going to take a while. Okay? It's alright if you fall asleep on the chair. So, I said, okay. I said, wait a minute, honey. We'll figure this out. I think I've seen this before, or something like this before. And I tried to calm him down. I gave him some relief by saying, don't worry. And after we had dinner, we had the kids in bed. I got out my notebook because I'd already been journaling. And I just said, start at the beginning. Tell me exactly what happened, piece by piece. And we'll figure it all out and decide what it means later. He was greatly relieved. But while we were eating dinner, we kept looking at each other. I kept checking him to see what he looked like, see if he was okay. He was still really upset. But I could tell that he was relieved that we were just doing something as normal as eating dinner. and that we were going to work on this together. And so we did. That night, we wrote everything down, piece by piece. And that night or the next day, when it came to describing the figure that was standing in the doorway, Jack can't draw it all, and I can draw a little. So as he's describing it to me, I'm drawing it on the paper, because I was already writing anyway. And I recognized it, because I had seen this exact shape of a person once before in my life, and I had never forgotten it, because I was 4 years old, and this man was standing in my bedroom. My mother put me to bed for the night. My room was dim, and this person was standing in my room in front of my closet doorway. And I said something to him like, "Who are you?" or "What do you want?" And my parents sometimes had company in the evening. Remember, people used to always visit each other?
Yeah. Seems like light years ago.
The kids would go to bed at 7, and then the adults would have their adult time. So it wasn't uncommon for there to be people in the house that I didn't really know. I thought it was a friend of my parents. I wasn't afraid. I was talking to him, and he wasn't talking back. He wouldn't answer me. So I got up and I went downstairs, and I said to my mother, "Who's that man in my room?" And of course she said, "There's no man in your room." And I insisted there was. I was 4 years old, so I knew what I was saying, but I was only 4, so she wasn't listening to me. She started screaming, and she put me back to bed. And when she brought me upstairs, the man was gone. But then she left me in my bed, and I laid there thinking, I know what I saw. Why wouldn't my mother believe me?
Right.
Like, what just happened? Where'd that man go? I saw it clearly. It wasn't real. So I never really forgot it. I didn't think about it all the time, but I never forgot it. And then, like, when I was a teenager, it was my story to tell at sleepovers, ghost stories.
Oh, of course.
So I never forgot that it had happened. So here I was drawing it on the back of the paper with all the notes. And I'm like, "Jack, I saw this before."
So it sounds like there's some kind of agenda. I mean, it definitely picked you for something. That's what I'm getting here.
Yeah, sort of, except that they didn't pick us. They didn't choose us. We chose.
Now, when you say that, elaborate a little bit. What do you mean by "we chose"?
Well, it goes with soul and other states of consciousness, and already being you before you ever have a body, before your body's ever conceived. Like, not only does life go on after we die, but we're already us before we have a life.
Okay.
And that part of us is still right here. We are still that part right here. We're just not very well aware of it on a physical level. And Jack and I both decided to take an opportunity and to take the risks too, to try to do this work here in this life. Of all the things we do in life as humans, one of the things we do is work between worlds.
Okay, now explain that a little bit. When you say work in between worlds, what is it that you guys are doing?
Jack and I teach, and it's not that we know everything, It's just that things have happened to us, and we have some abilities and some knowledge, some understanding that can help other people that are going through the same thing we've been through. And it has to do with, like I said, soul and the continuation of life, evolution, and the relationship of people by spirit or by soul, not only to people in our own family, but to every single other person in our race, and also to people from other races or other worlds.
Okay, so let's pause just for a minute here. When was the first time that you, I understand when you were 4 years old, the entity showed up in your bedroom. What about when you're a woman? You know, this was right after Jack had his experience. When was the first time that you actually got to meet these guys face to face?
The first time was when I was a child.
Right, I mean, but like now as an adult, after Jack's experience.
First time, I think, was a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I think, after Jack's first experience. And I saw who I understood to be Tsar, and he was in his ball of light form. And that is a little bit bigger than a soccer ball. And I think Jack and I originally we were saying basketball, but he's not that large. A little bigger than a soccer ball. And he floated right into the room. And I was looking right at him. And besides that, I've seen them in my bedroom. I've seen their ships. And I've had many parallel experiences where Jack has a physical recall of his experience, and I have the same recall of the same experience at the same time from another state of consciousness. And the memory comes from inside of me because I was there out of body.
Okay, now tell us a little bit more about this character that you're talking about. How did you pronounce his name? Zar?
Zar, Z-A-R.
Okay, where does he come from?
Zar is he is of the most advanced and evolved race that visits Earth, and he is the representative of his race to our world, and he is the head person or the leader of the whole organization of races that visits Earth.
And how many races actually visit this planet?
That day that Jack had that experience I described in the garage, there were 170 races visiting Earth.
Wow.
Now there are 218.
218 intelligent life forms actually visiting planet Earth.
Right. And they come in crews. They each have multiple crafts that they travel here in. I think they have one each or just a few traveling crafts that are large, like hotels that they live in.
Right.
And each craft is designed and equipped for each race, individual race, for atmosphere and all that. And they also all have multiple smaller, like shuttle crafts. And I think most of the crafts we see in the sky that are actually alien are shuttlecrafts.
Okay. Now, when when you talk about like where they come from, people might think Mars. I mean, are we talking different galaxies like Andromeda? Do you know the actual place where these guys come from? At least one of the races?
Yeah, a few of them, sort of. They all come from nearby in our galaxy. Most of them come from our own arm of our galaxy, which is called Orion. And just a few of them are from the neighboring two arms of our galaxy. And that's because these are the races that are around us, that are within comfortable traveling distance, that are interested in visiting to set up to work here. We call it visiting, but they don't come and go constantly. They work here, they set up, and they stay.
So they're here right now?
Yes. They're in their ships, though, outside our atmosphere.
Okay, now,
not on Earth.
Does NASA know of this at all? And of course they would keep it hush-hush, but do you believe that they know about this, or have these beings acknowledged that NASA knows about this?
Absolutely. But the government, there's really two governments. There's a secret one and a public one. The secret government knows that we're being visited by alien life. They don't know all about the aliens. They only know what the aliens want them to know. And the government, the secret government, the real government, doesn't want the aliens here. And the government is trying to control the aliens. And the government is using humans and threats to humans and threats to the aliens to control the aliens.
Okay. All right. Now, when we're talking like a secret government, are we talking global, on a global scale, or is this...
Global. The leading nations are all in on it, and I don't know what all the leading nations are.
So it's like a global elite, pretty much.
Yes. They may not be in agreement about everything. I don't think they're in agreement about everything. But when it comes to the aliens, the nations on Earth that don't want to lose their power don't want the aliens here. So the leading nations are in agreement with each other to keep the aliens away and to keep the publics confused and to create a lot of disinformation, to hide real information under, and to discredit people and to attack the aliens.
So you think a lot of the UFO sightings today could actually be our government or the global elite actually leading us to think something else?
Yes. That's at least part of it.
Now, and
at least part of it.
I wanted to touch base with this because a lot of guys and girls listening to this show right now are going to be like, where does all of this tie in biblical? I mean, there's the Jesus scenario, and how do these aliens actually tie into that, if they do at all?
Well, you and I are people. You and I can believe in the one same God, but have different opinions and a different history and different traditions. Neither one of us is God. We don't have to hate each other because we believe something different. If you lived on another planet, it would still be the same thing. You and I would agree that God made everybody, if we agreed on that. We wouldn't have to think one or the other of us was God just because we lived on a different planet or lived on a different street.
Right. Like a lot of people might say, oh, aliens or demons or whatever. And you know what? Sometimes I often sit back and think of how ignorant it would be of us if an extraterrestrial traveled all this way, lands on our planet, and then he's demonized by the human race when if that's really not the case. I mean, how ignorant that would be of us to place such judgment on a star traveler.
Right. Exactly. Well, people fear what they don't understand. Humans fear. And our religions use that fear to control people and their money. And the government uses that fear to control the thinking of the people. And it's no different, really, from when we only had radio and we could only hear over the radio how the wars were going by what we were told, and it was all propaganda. It was all making people in America hate our enemy by calling them some horrible name and making the people out to be murderers and killers that we had to defend ourselves against. When really, our leader and their leaders were just making us fight each other.
So when you hear the story of somebody being abducted, or you see it on a Hollywood movie, and there's been all these bizarre or horrifying experiences that, they were put through, do you think a lot of this is disinformation actually being put out by the global elite, or is any of this real?
Both. It's mainly disinformation by the global elite, but the global elite were actually abducting people.
Okay.
Posing as aliens. And there were actually two alien races visiting Earth who were abducting some humans. And those two races were doing it for the very infamous Greys and their agenda of creating hybrid people.
Okay. Now, in the Bible, it mentions, I'm trying to think of the word, Nephilim. Now, what does that mean to you?
I don't know. I've looked into that because a lot of people have asked me about that. I don't understand it and I don't believe it. It's not a true story. It's not true from anything that I understand. And of course, there are a lot of things that are true that I don't know anything about. But I have no reason to believe anything about giants mating with women on Earth, or Nibiru, or any of that.
The whole Planet X scenario, right?
Yeah.
I think if it was going to happen in 2012, I think we'd be seeing it in the sky right now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me ask you this. Out of all the contacts that you've ever had with these beings, have you actually ever had the luxury of going on one of their ships? And if so, what was it like?
Yeah. I've been on a lot of ships. Jack has been on ships for the purpose of taking a ride and then recalling it clearer than I do for the purpose of sharing it with other people. But every person, every human who has contact with alien life goes up on their ships. The most remarkable visit to a ship that I've ever had was a couple months, maybe 3 months, I'm guessing, into that summer that we first met them. And we went up onto the project ship, and Tsar showed us a book, and it was on a podium, and the book was made out of light. And when you open the book, all the pages are made out of light. And you can read the words, the letters on the pages are in symbols made out of light. And we understood it to be a book of God, their book of God, Tsar's race's book of God. And that was one of the most important and special, memorable visits to their ship that I've been on.
Now, do they have windows in these crafts where you can actually look out and see beautiful stars and stuff like that? Like, you always see our astronauts floating around, hair sticking up, looking all wild. I'm sure something like what you're describing, they might actually have, artificial gravity.
Yeah, there's no force. There's no centrifugal force on the craft. No matter how fast they move, you can't feel it. All the ships are different, and all the ships have different areas for different things. The same as like if you went to a school. There'd be an office for things you do in an office, an auditorium, for things you do in an auditorium. And it all depends on what you're there for. There are exam rooms, and there's like a bridge, sort of like Star Trek. And not all the ships are round. Most of them have furniture, but it's sparse in the areas that we've seen. And it's small, because most of the alien people are smaller than us. Their electronics run by telepathy. They just think something to their computers. They don't even really have to touch them.
So are they traveling pretty much at the speed of thought, so to speak? Like, how do these craft actually... Are they traveling through wormholes? Are they just got some crazy technology where they can actually travel the vast universe?
No, they can't travel the universe.
How does that work then?
Well, they travel the same way we travel, the way we think of travel, in a straight line at a speed. And the greater the technology, the greater the speed. But space is so vast that it's not practical to try to travel that way to another world. It's dangerous. It's too far. You can't get back. If something happened, they have to send somebody else out after you. So they use a technology to switch dimensions, because other dimensions have different values of time. Time is not actually linear the way we think of time. We think of things happening one after another, and that makes sense time.
So it's like instantaneous, pretty much.
It seems that way, but it's not. It seems that way. It's like if you slow down a video, if you make a video of yourself and then you watch it on a slow speed, that's like looking into another dimension.
Right.
And if you watch it on a faster speed, that's like looking into another different dimension. So to travel at a speed near light and then to switch into another dimension, it's sort of like if you were comfortably jogging along, and then you jog up an escalator that's going up. That's like dimensional travel.
Okay, I gotta ask you this. Do you think, now there's a lot of conspiracy that NASA, that man truly has never went to the moon. Can you say with certainty that if they did or they did not?
No, I can't. I have no idea. The aliens have never told us that in one way or the other. It's not something they want to tell us. It's not something that they want people or the government to think that that's the kind of information they give us.
Have they ever told you anything about life on other planets in our solar system? For example, Mars. It's the closest.
A little bit, yeah. There's life on Mars.
What do they say about that?
The beings that live on Mars were the second race that Jack and I met. First we met Tsar. We didn't even really know he was an alien. We didn't understand for quite a while. And then we started seeing these little shadows peeking out around the house, and we could hear them talking, and we're seeing them in our dreams, and was really difficult. And we found out that they were a different race and that they were from Mars. They are the race that lives inside of Mars.
So what do they look like?
They look just like the little bluish, grayish beings in Whitley Striebert's movie, Communion. If you watch the movie,
Okay.
they're depicted pretty close to the way they look. Not exactly, but pretty close.
So you're saying they actually, there's life on there right now and they're living underground.
Right.
So is it like cities underground? How does that work?
Exactly.
That makes it, because when you look at Mars, it looks like, a wasteland. Did something happen there?
Yes. The surface of Mars, and our scientists already know, used to be very much like Earth. And there was an accident. It was a natural accident. And it destroyed the surface. It destroyed the atmosphere. And the people on Mars knew that it was going to happen because there used to be a little planet that orbited between Mars and Earth. It was little.
Okay.
And something happened to it, and it went off its orbit just a little bit. It changed its orbit. And it was going to eventually collide with Mars. And the people on Mars knew that. And they were already digging underground. They were already building underground and living underground. So they just did it more. And when it was time for the collision, most of the people, or many of the people, got into ships and left the planet for it. And other people went underground, stayed underground. But when the little planet hit Mars, it was much worse than they had expected because the little planet blew up on impact.
Just hearing something like that, I can't even imagine a little planet. And, I've heard stories of something striking Mars. I can't really cite anything because I can't really remember, but it actually wiped the atmosphere completely off the planet.
That's what happened. It knocked Mars away from its atmosphere. It knocked it away because it hit it so hard. When it blew up, the force of the explosion it didn't knock it real far, just so violently that it lost its atmosphere. Everything on the surface died.
Now, when you think about stuff like that, it makes you think, could something like that actually happen here? Obviously it's possible.
Yeah, it did. It happened to the dinosaurs.
Do these beings ever give you any visions or foretellings of future events?
No, not like that. But they have hinted around without telling us directly. They certainly do have capabilities of striking meteors to break up anything that needed to be broken up that was going to be colliding with, something that could cause a chain reaction that could, cause loss of life.
There's actually a new article out. Actually, NASA's pretty focused on this one, the 2012 EA-14, I believe. That's due to it's an asteroid. It's about 66 meters across, I believe, and it's actually going to come so close it's going to dip down below our satellites in 2013 in the month of February. I'm not sure if you were aware of that.
I think I did hear something about that.
Yeah, and they're actually talking about, it's so weird because they're really talking about this. They're talking about painting the surface of it which somehow the sunlight, when it strikes the paint, will influence it to kind of knock it away from us a little bit. Now that makes me wonder. I mean, if something like that was going to happen, hopefully there would be extraterrestrials out there that could intervene somehow.
Yeah, they would. Sure, they would. That's part of what they do by being set up here.
And you always hear a lot of stories as well, Nancy, of nuclear missiles being disarmed. Now that's got to be them as well, right? Because I mean, they don't want the planet destroyed.
I think it was. I don't think that all of those rumors are false. I don't think they're all true either. I don't pay attention to all of them, but I do believe that the alien races have disarmed missiles. But that's not the kind of information that our alien friends would give Jack and me directly. They wouldn't answer a question like that for us directly. If they did, if our alien friends started telling us things like that, it would be a red flag to people that we don't want to draw the attention of. It's important that Jack and I stick to what we do so that we can stay free to do it. And if the government or other people thought that our alien friends were giving us information that's secret, or that the aliens weren't being careful about the kind of information they give us, we would be in danger.
That makes a lot of sense, the way you say that.
Yeah, and Jack and I are public speakers. What we do is speak publicly. What we do is put ourselves out there, and we get a lot of grief too from people because.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. What do people say to you when you tell, when you're sharing your amazing story? I mean, how do people react? I know some people are probably like, no way, and others are probably like, oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, we speak publicly. We used to travel to do talks in person before internet, really, and before, the children needed us at home. But we would go and speak where we were invited to speak. So we weren't putting this out anywhere cold. We would be with a group of people from like 30 people to hundreds of people. But we felt that we were there because they invited us there, and the people came to hear us because they had questions. We don't go around trying to talk to people that don't know anything about it and don't want to hear it.
Right.
No, but there's always a few in the crowd that are jealous or, that have told great big lies about their own experiences, and they're afraid. From the time that they tell their first lie, they're actually afraid that someone who knows they lie will come to the group, and that's Jack and me. And in any group of people, there's the group leaders, and there's the packs and the cliques.
Right.
And it's hard to be, we don't become popular, we become unpopular. And we step on a lot of toes. There are a lot of people telling big lies.
So what you're saying, though, pretty much is don't fear extraterrestrials, that there's nothing to worry about, that everything's going to be all right.
No. That's true, but that's not what we do. That's not our message.
But like somebody out there listening to this right now, I mean, let's say that it's how can I word this? If they say a UFO in the sky, or they hear this and they know aliens are real, there's nothing for them to fear, right?
Right. There's nothing for them to fear from the aliens.
They're not going to come down and perform these wild experiments and all that.
No. If you find out that you have alien experiences, you've always had alien experiences. And it might be really tough to get to know them. It might be really hard. It might be really scary at first. But if you want to, they'll help you, and other people will help you get to know them, and then you can figure out what it is you do with them and how it is you can contribute to somehow helping our world join our local group of worlds. Because if we don't do it, this race isn't going to make it.
You know, I can't help but think about the video game. I'm a video game guy. I play video games, I'll admit it. Mass Effect. It really reminds me so much of that. I mean, I've spoken to you years ago before Mass Effect was even invented, and it's just like, it's almost like what you're saying, what you've been saying, is kind of what is going in video games today. And then you see these different TV shows. Do you think that somehow in Hollywood, maybe intertwined in Hollywood, that they might be kind of setting us up to something that might be coming to take place as far as, you know, aliens becoming more public and to accept them and not be afraid of them? Do you think there's anything like that?
No, I think it's opposite. I think that the powers that be, what they let into the media is disinformation, which works by telling a little bit of obvious truth to gain trust, and then to turn you against it. And the things, I don't think anyone is deliberately sneaking things into the media to get us ready to meet the aliens. I think that's just kind of happening because so many human beings have experiences with alien life and don't even know it on a physical level. That people that are making things and telling stories in Hollywood that's looking for stories, that there's a shift to it being more positive, more environmental, more futuristic, more exciting, and hopefully it's going to work in time.
I just got one more question for you, Nancy, and then I know you got a book, and I'd like, for you to talk a little bit about that and where people can get it. But when I'm hearing aliens and extraterrestrials, one name that always comes up is Ashtar. Now, have you ever heard of this entity at all? Do you have any knowledge of this being at all?
Ashtar Command?
Yeah, the Galactic Federation of Light, something like that.
Yeah, it's all made up.
So you believe that the Ashtar scenario is definitely not correct?
Right, it's all made up. And it sounds really good, and people who are interested in it, many of them do actually have alien experiences, but people are confused, and people join in and they add their ideas and their stories, and they make up more things, and things continue to be popular because they sound really good, but there isn't an Ashtar Command.
And tell us a little bit about your book. I know it's titled The Project at Earth. What's in it, and where can people get it?
It's available anywhere, and it's my husband's and our kids' journals, my journals actually, of my family, of our first 18 months of alien experiences. And it details meeting 15 different races.
Stuff that you couldn't go on here and talk. It'd take hours. I mean, days.
Yes, it would. But it's of about 100 experiences, and it's very factual as to what happened, because as each thing happened, I wrote it. Whether it happened to me or to Jack or to the kids. And a lot of it we didn't understand as it happened. I just kept writing anyway. I would just get all the detail as much as I could and keep it in order. That book was published in 2006.
Now, Nancy, before we end the show, I want to give you the opportunity to anybody out there listening right now, if there's anything that you would like to tell them. Anybody out there?
That would be to think for yourself. Absolutely think for yourself. Because alien experiences are spiritual experiences first and foremost. Then they're also sometimes physical experiences. And it doesn't matter if you're having these experiences with your neighbor next door to you or a person from another planet. It's the same kind of an experience. The people from other planets are much further evolved and advanced than we are, and they can do things that look like magic to us. But we need to remember that they're people, they're mortal, they're also moral and highly educated, intelligent, and highly motivated to help us save our world and save our race. Keep an open mind and don't believe what anyone else tells you. Only believe what you know yourself inside.
So go with your gut instinct and it's always right.
Right. And if you want to know about the aliens, ask the aliens, because they're the only ones who know. If you see an alien in any way, if you're sound asleep and you see an alien and you wake up and it's not there anymore, don't go read a book to see what it was that happened to you, because you'll get further and further and further away from the truth by doing that. Even if you're reading something that someone else honestly believed and wrote that happened to them, go to the alien. Ask that alien person everything you want to know, and that's how you'll learn the truth.
Now, you do got a website, correct?
Yes, theprojectatearth.com.
All right, Nancy, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Maybe one of these days we'll have to get your husband Jack on here as well to share some of his stories.
Sure, he would love to.
All right, I appreciate it, and you have a good night.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, thank
very
you
much.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much. You too. God bless.